The mindset that separates winners and ladies and gentlemen. Success isn't reserved for the lucky. It's carved out by those who choose a different mindset. While the world often looks at talent, connections, or circumstances, what truly sets winners apart is how they think. Winners see challenges as opportunities, setbacks as lessons, and effort as a privilege, not a burden. They understand that the mind is the steering wheel of destiny, and they grip it with purpose every single day. Today, we're diving deep into that winning mindset, the quiet force that shapes champions, transforms lives, and turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. Winners don't wait for the perfect moment. They start with what they have and make it perfect. Have you ever met someone who was always waiting? Waiting for the right time, the right conditions, the right resources, the right energy, the right mood, the right approval. They wait so long that life passes them by while they're still at the starting line. Let me tell you something. The people who win in life don't wait for everything to be perfect. They get started before they're ready. They take action while others are still making excuses. They understand a fundamental truth. Success is not built on convenience. It's built on commitment. The winner's mindset says, I may not have it all figured out, but I'll take the first step anyway. That first step, as small or shaky as it may seem, sets momentum in motion. Because action has power. The losers are still checking the weather, waiting for the stars to align. Meanwhile, the winner has already planted the seed, started the project, made the call, knocked on the door, and by the time the world calls it luck, the winner has already earned it through courage. This mindset isn't loud or boastful. In fact, it's often quiet. It's the voice inside that says, I'll figure it out along the way. It's not perfection that drives winners, it's progress. They understand that clarity often comes after action, not before. So while others are sitting on the sidelines, waiting for the fog to lift, winners are out in the field, creating their path, learning from each stumble and adjusting their course. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying winners act recklessly. No, they act intentionally. But they don't need every variable to be perfect to move forward. They've learned that perfection is a mirage. If you chase it, it will keep moving. If you wait for it, it will never arrive. Winners realize that a plan in motion, even if imperfect, is far more powerful than a perfect plan still sitting in a drawer. Think of every great inventor, entrepreneur, artist, or athlete. They didn't start at the top. They started in the garage, in the spare room, in debt, with a notebook full of dreams and just enough courage to begin. They didn't wait to become masters. They became masters by doing. The road to excellence is paved with early, awkward steps. Mindset of a winner embraces this truth. There's an old saying, do what you can with what you have where you are. That's the winning formula. It's not about the perfect camera. It's about telling the story. It's not about the perfect gym. It's about doing the push-ups. It's not about the perfect opportunity. It's about making the most of the one in front of you, because what you do now creates the foundation for what you can do next. This mindset also separates the hopeful from the committed. You see, hope is nice, but it's not a strategy. Winners don't just hope it'll work out. They show up. They execute. They take responsibility for their results, and that's the key. They don't blame the economy, the government, the algorithm, or their childhood. They take what they've got and turn it into fuel. They say, this is mine to shape. This is mine to grow. And I won't wait for perfect conditions to get moving. The magic of starting now, even when it's messy, is that momentum breeds motivation. Most people think they need motivation to get started, but winners know the truth. Getting started creates motivation. It's the act of doing that lights fire. Want to write a book? Start with a sentence. Want to build a business? Start with a customer. Want to change your life? Start with a single habit. The secret is starting, and starting now. Winners also understand that failure isn't fatal, it's feedback. So they're not paralyzed by the fear of imperfection. They don't let the fear of doing it wrong stop them from doing it at all. Because they know the person who tries and fails is still 10 steps ahead of the person who never tried. And every time they fall, they learn. Every time they stumble, they gain wisdom. It's not about being flawless, it's about being fearless. The world we live in today moves fast. Opportunities pass by in an instant. The cost of hesitation is high, and the people who win aren't the ones with the most resources. They're the ones with the most resolve. They act when others freeze. They move when others Overthink, they do when others doubt. They're not waiting for a green light from the world. They've already given themselves permission. So if you want to know what separates the winners, look at how they begin. Not when everything is aligned, but when nothing is. Look at their willingness to move forward in the middle of chaos, uncertainty, and fear. That mindset, the one that says, I'll begin with what I've got and grow from there, is the mindset that changes lives. It's the mindset that builds empires, inspires movements, and creates legacies. You don't need the stars to align. You need to align your mindset. You don't need more time. You need more decision. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a starting point. Winners know this, and that's why they're always 2 steps ahead. Not because they had more, but because they did more with less. Discipline is the bridge between dreams and results. Winners walk that bridge daily. Dreams are beautiful. They stir the soul, spark imagination, and give hope to the heart. But let's make one thing very clear. Dreams without discipline are just distant fantasies. Everyone dreams, but not everyone is willing to work. Not everyone is willing to pay the price. The difference between a dreamer and a doer is simple. Discipline. It's the daily grind, the small, repeated choices, the silent sacrifices. It's getting up early when the bed feels warm. It's staying late when the world has already called it a day. It's doing what needs to be done even when no one is watching. That's the winner's mindset. They understand that success doesn't show up at your door with fireworks. It arrives slowly, quietly, wearing work boots and demanding effort. And every day you choose discipline, you add another plank to the bridge between who you are and who you could be. Winners don't just flirt with discipline. They marry it. They know it's not an event, it's a lifestyle. It's not about being extreme one day and exhausted the next. It's about being consistent, because true power isn't in bursts of greatness. It's in steady progress. Discipline is what turns chaos into order, potential into progress, and intentions into impact. Most people intend to do great things. Winners commit. And the reason they stand out isn't because they're smarter or stronger. It's because they show up even when they don't feel like it. That's what builds character. That's what builds legacy. That's what builds results. You see, the undisciplined life is full of regret, missed opportunities, abandoned goals, wasted potential. The disciplined life, it's not always glamorous, but it's rich with purpose. While others are chasing comfort, winners are choosing growth. And growth never lives in the comfort zone. It lives in the early mornings, in the late nights, in the difficult conversations, in the quiet choices no one else sees. Winners understand that. They don't run from discomfort. They lean into it, because they know discipline is hard, yes, but regret, that's harder. The world teaches people to chase motivation, but motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes like the weather. Discipline is different. It's stable, it's firm. It doesn't ask how you feel today. It asks what you committed to yesterday. Winners don't rely on being in the mood. They train themselves to follow through regardless of the mood. That's the difference between emotion and execution. Everyone feels inspired from time to time, but winners build systems so they don't have to feel inspired. They simply act on principle. Think about the great athletes, artists, thinkers, and leaders of our time. Do you really think they always felt like showing up? No, but they did it anyway. The gym, the rehearsal, the writing desk, the meeting, the early flight. They kept showing up, and eventually results showed up too, because discipline is a compound effect. You don't see it on day 1, but day 100, day 1000, that's where the magic is. That's where the seeds you planted bloom. That's where effort turns into excellence. Winners also understand the value of the little things. They know that daily habits determine destiny. You don't become world class by accident. You become world class by doing ordinary things extraordinarily well every single day. You don't skip the reps, you don't skip the reading, you don't skip the call, the planning, the practice. Discipline is found in the decision to be faithful to the fundamentals. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. With discipline, winners play the long game. They don't need immediate applause. They're building something that lasts. Now here's the truth most people avoid. Discipline means saying no. No to distractions. No to Temptations, no to quick fixes. Winners know that every yes to a distraction is a no to their vision, and every time they say no to what doesn't serve them, they say yes to what does. They're not controlled by emotion or impulse. They're led by purpose. That's why their energy is focused. Their priorities are clear, and their habits are aligned with their goals. Discipline isn't punishment, it's protection. Protection of your potential, your energy, your vision. And here's something powerful. The more disciplined you become, the more freedom you experience. That may sound like a contradiction, but it's the truth. Discipline gives you the freedom to create, the freedom to move, the freedom to choose your future rather than react to it. Undisciplined people are always in reaction mode, fighting fires, missing deadlines, making excuses. Disciplined people, they're in creation mode. They shape their day, their work, their future on purpose. So if you want to know what separates the winners from the rest, don't just look at their results. Look at their routines, look at their mornings, look at how they spend an hour, look at what they do when no one is watching. That's where success is built, not in grand gestures, but in quiet consistency, not in what they promise, but in what they practice. The world is full of wishers, but winners, they're workers. They don't just hope. It works out, they work it out, day by day, step by step, with grit, with focus. Relentless discipline, and that's how dreams become reality. One disciplined day at a time. Losers make excuses. Winners make adjustments. Life will always give you reasons to pause, to hesitate, to blame. Circumstances will rarely be perfect. Plans will often go sideways, and people, they will disappoint you, misunderstand you, even stand in your way. But here's the dividing line that separates those who rise from those who fall. When things go wrong, losers make excuses. Winners make adjustments. The loser says, I couldn't because, and then lists every external force imaginable. Winner says, I didn't, but I will, and here's how. One finds reasons to stay the same, the other finds ways to move forward. That's the mindset that makes all the difference. Excuses feel good in the moment. They're comforting, they offer protection, they let us off the hook. But that comfort is a trap. You see, every excuse is a brick in the wall that keeps you from your potential. The more you make, the higher that wall grows, until one day you find yourself trapped behind it, watching other people climb while you're stuck defending why you never started. Excuses are clever, polished lies. We tell ourselves to avoid effort, accountability, and change, but winners have no interest in defending limitations. They are too busy stretching them. When a winner hits a wall, they don't curse the wall. They find a way over it, around it, through it, or under it. They adapt. They revise. They pivot. Winners are problem solvers, not problem reporters. They don't just announce what went wrong. They adjust their approach until something goes right. The loser says, it's not my fault. The winner says, it's my responsibility. The difference may sound small, but it's everything, because responsibility is the gateway to power. If it's your responsibility, then it's within your control, and what you control, you can change. This mindset is rooted in ownership, and ownership isn't always comfortable, but it's always empowering. You can't grow from what you don't own, so while others waste energy blaming the boss, the system, the weather, the traffic, the economy, winners are working, adjusting, figuring it out. They take the setback and turn it into a setup. They take feedback and turn it into fuel. That's not luck. That's mental toughness. Winners also understand that life doesn't hand out exemptions. No one is entitled to an easy path. Everyone faces struggle, rich or poor, educated or not, introvert or extrovert. The difference is not the challenge, it's the response. Losers freeze, complain, or give up. Winners say, this is hard, but it's not impossible. They adjust their expectations, their strategy, their timeline, but not their mission. That's the key. Flexibility in method, but fire in purpose. Let's get practical. If your business plan fails, do you quit or do you adjust the model? If your first book flops, do you stop writing or do you learn and improve? If your relationship hits conflict, do you walk away or do you communicate and grow? Winners are humble enough to admit what's not working and wise enough to tweak it. They don't abandon the dream. They just adjust the route, because the dream is worth fighting for. The goal is worth evolving for. Another reason winners succeed where others don't is because they don't take failure personally. Losers say, I failed, therefore I am a failure. Winners say, I failed, therefore I learned. That shift changes everything. It frees them from shame and opens the door to action. They don't waste time in self-pity. They spend time in self-reflection, and from that they rise stronger. Every setback sharpens them. Every obstacle toughens them. Every excuse avoided becomes a win earned. And don't think winners don't feel the pull of excuses. They do. They're human, but they've trained themselves to override it. When that voice says, "I'm too tired," they respond, "Then I'll do it tired." When the thought comes, "This isn't fair," they counter with, "Life isn't fair, but I'm still responsible." When things break down, they don't break down with them. They rebuild. They rethink. They realign. That's what it means to be mentally resilient, to keep moving forward when others would pause and explain why it's too hard. This mindset doesn't mean everything goes smoothly for winners. Far from it. In fact, winners often face more resistance because they're pushing further, but their commitment to adjust instead of excuse is what pulls them through. They're driven by vision, not circumstance. They're grounded in principles, not preferences. So when the path gets rough, and it will, they don't sit down and sulk. They rise up and revise. They ask better questions. What can I learn? What can I change? What's the next best move? And then they make it. So let this sink in. Every time you make an excuse, you hand your power away. But every time you make an adjustment, you reclaim it. That's what separates the average from the excellent. The weak mindset asks, "Why me?" The winning mindset asks, "What now?" Because at the end of the day, success doesn't belong to the smartest, or the strongest, or the most privileged. It belongs to those who refuse to stay stuck. Those who keep adapting, keep growing, and keep showing up over and over again. The truth is simple. The road to greatness is not paved with excuses. It's built through adjustments. And the winners, they're not waiting for perfect conditions or blaming imperfect ones. They're building brick by brick from wherever they are, with whatever they have, until they cross the finish line. That's the mindset that separates them. And it's a mindset that anyone can choose. Winners think long term while others chase shortcuts in a world addicted to instant results, microwave success, and overnight fame. There's a rare breed of people who stand out, not because they move faster, but because they move with vision. These are the winners. And what sets them apart isn't just talent or charisma, it's how they think. While others chase shortcuts and shiny distractions, winners think long term. They play the long game, not the fast one. They're not seduced by the illusion of quick fixes or the empty promises of immediate rewards. They know that anything of real value, wealth, wisdom, mastery, legacy, requires time, patience, and persistence. And in a world obsessed with now, the ability to delay gratification is a superpower. Losers want to win the hour, the day, the week. Winners want to win the decade. They're not measuring progress by what happens this afternoon. They're building something they'll still be proud of 20 years from now. That's why their mindset is rooted in principle, not impulse. Winners understand that greatness is never rushed. It's developed in silence, in repetition, in seasons of obscurity, where the only audience is your future self. They're not in it for applause, they're in it for impact. They're not counting likes, they're building legacy, and legacy isn't built with shortcuts. It's built with foundations, layers, and years of doing the hard things when no one is watching. That's why they wake up early, stay late, practice when they're tired, and prepare when no one else thinks it's necessary, because they're not just trying to succeed, they're preparing to sustain success. They've learned the hard truth. Fast success is often fragile, but slow, steady progress is solid. It lasts, it holds, it compounds, and they know that while everyone else is sprinting for instant returns, they are planting seeds that will bear fruit for a lifetime. This mindset of patience and long-term thinking gives winners a strategic edge. Where others react, winners respond. Where others jump from idea to idea, chasing trends, winners stay consistent with their core values and long-range goals, and that consistency creates power. It builds trust with themselves and with the world. Winners understand that mastery isn't built by doing something once. It's built by doing it again and again. And again, they know that repetition isn't boring, it's refining. It shapes them, strengthens them, polishes them. It's what turns average into excellent and excellent into extraordinary. So while the masses are constantly starting over, always trying something new, the winner stays the course. They dig deep instead of wide, they go far instead of fast. Winners also think long term when it comes to habits. They don't look at what feels good now. They ask, what will serve me a year from now, 5 years, 10? That's why they invest in their health, their mind, their relationships, their character, because they know small disciplines repeated over time create massive outcomes. They know that every decision is a seed and the harvest is guaranteed. It just takes time. While others skip the gym, skip the reading, skip the planning because one day won't matter. Winners understand every day does matter. Every choice is a brick in the house of your future. And whether you realize it or not, you are building something. Every single day. The only question is it something worth living in? Long-term mindset also shields winners from the emotional highs and lows that derail so many others. When you're thinking short-term, every setback feels like a disaster, every delay feels like defeat. But when you're thinking long-term, you realize that today's challenge is just one frame in a much bigger movie. You don't panic because you know the story isn't over. You keep showing up because you know one rough chapter doesn't ruin the whole book. That's how winners stay grounded in storms. They don't just see the moment, they see the mission. They zoom out when everyone else is zooming in, and that perspective gives them power. They can outlast the panic, outwork the chaos, outthink the noise, because they know where they're going and they're not getting there overnight. And let's talk about finances, because the long-term mindset makes all the difference there, too. Losers blow money to look rich. Winners invest money to become rich. One is about image, the other is about freedom, and freedom doesn't come from looking successful. It comes from becoming disciplined. Winners skip the impulse buys, the fast pleasures, the flashy distractions, because they're playing a different game. They understand compound interest, not just with money, but with life. They know that the earlier you start building, the bigger the return. And while the world is busy chasing dopamine, they're building dividends, quietly, intentionally, powerfully. Long-term thinking also changes the way winners deal with people. They don't burn bridges over emotions. They don't sabotage partnerships over pride. They invest in relationships that matter. They understand that people come back around, that seeds planted in humility today can grow into opportunities tomorrow. That character and reputation, when protected over years, become currencies that open doors you couldn't force open with a battering ram. So they treat people well, they speak with integrity, they apologize when needed, and they always keep the big picture in mind. Because they're not just playing for profit, they're playing for respect. Now let's be honest, thinking long-term is not easy. It requires patience in a culture of pressure. It requires vision when everyone else is distracted. It requires sacrifice when convenience is available. But that's the point. Easy never builds excellent. Winners aren't interested in what's easy. They're committed to what's effective. They understand that most people trade their future for their feelings. They don't. They're willing to be uncomfortable now so they can live with options later. That's discipline. That's foresight. That's wisdom. And in a noisy world filled with shortcuts, that mindset is gold. So if you want to join the winners, you must train yourself to zoom out. Don't ask, how fast can I get it? Ask, how solid can I build it? Don't ask, what's easy now? Ask, what pays off later? Trade the microwave for the slow cooker. Trade the sprint for the marathon. Trade the illusion of success for the substance of it. And understand this, every shortcut comes with a cost. What you gain in speed, you often lose in depth. What you gain in flash, you often lose in foundation. And when the storm comes, and it will only what's built deep will stand strong. Winners don't fear the long road, they embrace it. Because they know that while the journey is longer, the reward is richer. The lessons are deeper, the roots are stronger. So while others burn out, drop off, or start over, the winner keeps going, one brick at a time, one day at a time, one principle at a time. And when the dust settles and the noise fades and the quick fix crowd has vanished, the winner remains standing tall, built to last, because they thought long term and they lived like it. Winners focus on growth, not approval. If there is one thing that quietly robs more people of their potential than fear, failure, or even laziness, it is the need for approval. The need to be liked, applauded, validated, and accepted by everyone. But winners, those who rise above the noise and stand tall in their purpose, do not live for approval, they live for growth. While others mold themselves to fit the expectations of the crowd, winners shape themselves to fit the demands of destiny. They are not driven by how many people clap, they are driven by how much they improve. This is what separates temporary achievers from the lasting legends. The average person waits for permission. The winner gives themselves authority, and instead of asking, "Do they like me?" they ask, "Am I becoming better than I was yesterday?" Because winners know growth is the true reward and approval is just a side effect that may or may not come. This mindset changes everything. When you're focused on approval, you take safe steps. You stay in your comfort zone. You avoid risk. You filter your truth, and you live a filtered life, clean on the outside but confined on the inside. But when you're focused on growth, you take bold steps. You speak up, you show up, you make mistakes, fall down, get back up, and keep going. Not because it looks good, but because it makes you stronger. Winners understand this deeply. Applause fades, the compliments stop, but the person you become, that stays forever. That's why they don't spend their energy trying to impress people who aren't even investing in their journey. They don't dance for the crowd. They run for the crown, and the crown is not given to the most popular. It's given to the most committed. Winners also know that growth is not always glamorous. It's uncomfortable. It exposes your weaknesses. It demands your humility, and worst of all, it happens in private. While others are posting highlights, winners are building habits. While others are chasing likes, winners are chasing lessons. They know that every new level of life will require a new level of them, and the only way to get there is to grow through it. There's no shortcut around growth, no hack that replaces the pain of stretching your character, your skills, your vision. That's why winners are willing to be uncomfortable longer than most. They understand that comfort is the enemy of progress, and if you're always trying to avoid discomfort, you're also avoiding your potential. But let's talk about the real danger of living for approval. It makes you a slave to opinions. It causes you to question your instincts, to hesitate on your dreams, to dilute your voice, and once you lose your authenticity, you lose your power. Winners guard that authenticity like gold. They understand that their voice, their story, their truth is what gives them influence, not conformity. So they don't change who they are to make others comfortable. They don't shrink to avoid judgment. They stand firm in their purpose, even if it offends a few people, even if it confuses the crowd, because they'd rather grow into who they're meant to be than get stuck being who others want them to be. They'd rather walk alone in purpose than sit in a crowd of people who are applauding a version of them that isn't even real. Winners also have the courage to fail publicly, something approval chasers could never stomach. They're not afraid of being seen trying, falling, messing up, or learning in front of others. Why? Because they're not doing it for them, they're doing it for the mission, and growth always requires the courage to be seen before you're polished. You'll never grow if your goal is to always look good. Growth is messy, growth is loud, growth is awkward, but it's also beautiful because it transforms you from who you were into who you were born to be. And winners embrace every part of that process. They don't fake it, they face it. Another reason winners outlast the approval chasers is because they have an internal scoreboard. They measure success by progress, not praise. They know when they've leveled up, not because someone clapped, but because they felt the shift, the discipline, the patience, the grit, the clarity. Winners know that the real trophies are the habits they build, the battles they win in silence, and the growth that no one sees. Everyone eventually feels. That's why they don't chase trends or try to go viral. They stay rooted, focused, intentional, because they're not here to be impressive. They're here to be impactful, and impact always comes from depth, not noise. Winners also surround themselves with people who challenge them to grow, not just cheer them for staying the same. Approval seekers want cheerleaders. Growth seekers want coaches. They want feedback. They want truth. They're not afraid of hearing you can do better because they want to do better. They crave excellence more than they crave comfort. And They would rather be corrected than coddled. That's why their circle is strong, because it's filled with people who aren't afraid to say, "You're slipping, you're better than this," or "It's time to rise." And instead of getting offended, the winner gets focused. This is a mindset you must train. Because the need for approval is deeply human. We all want to be liked. We all want to feel accepted. But the moment that desire becomes your driver, you're off course. You lose your compass, and the very people you're trying to please often don't even know who they are themselves. So why take directions from people who aren't going anywhere? Winners refuse to live on borrowed opinions. They lead themselves. They know that true fulfillment doesn't come from applause. It comes from alignment, being aligned with your purpose, your values, your growth. And when you're in alignment, you don't need loud approval. You walk with quiet confidence. So the next time you feel the pull to impress, to perform, to polish your image, pause, ask yourself, am I growing or just pleasing? Because only one of those paths leads to your highest self. Winners choose the path of growth, even when it's lonely, even when it's slow, even when it's misunderstood, and in the end, that choice is what makes them great. Approval fades, crowds change, opinions shift, but growth compounds. It multiplies. It elevates you beyond applause and into purpose. And that, my friend, is what separates winners from the rest.